But I'm happy all of you know what we're doing. We're handling it in a short period of time. But I know, we all know, almost all felt on the gap of what we're doing. I want to use this opportunity to thank you so much for the cooperation you have given to the committee during the entire time of this 10th Parliament. Also, I want to congratulate you on the many achievements you have registered for our sector. I think a lot has been done, but we still have a lot to do. So, congratulate you. As usual, I want to say, we are with you, beside you, and behind you. Maybe before I hand over to the minister, I want to remind you, we are now managing a transition from the 10th to the 11th Parliament. During the new Parliament, there will be many new faces in this committee. And in order to be able to effectively engage the members of that committee, we need to organize some form of induction for the new members, so as they are able to provide the support required in their respective mandates of oversight, representation, legislative, and budgeting. So, I now give you the floor on Minister to present your responses in relation to the issues raised by the committee. As I already mentioned, you don't have to read verbatim. Highlight the key points. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Honorable Ndezi, and the entire committee of the Honorable Members of this committee. Allow me, Honorable Chair, to reserve a moment to my team to introduce themselves to you, beginning with myself. I'm Florence Kiyingi, the Minister of State for Youth and Children Affairs, and over to my colleague.
I'm called Kanyikke, Minister of State in charge of elderly and disability.
Chair, Upgrade Deputy Kiyingi, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Youth and Social Development.
Assistant Commissioner, Study Planning, Martin Mandela, Director of Labor Employment, Educational Secretary.
Florence, Commission Employment Services. Francis Odom, Dimoro, Assistant Commissioner, Commission Health, Panicking for the Commissioner for Social Service and Health.
Naumo, Juliana Koyo, Commissioner for Culture and Family Affairs, but Director for Gender and Community Development and Interim.
I'm Alex Sassino, Commissioner Labor, Industrial Relations and Productivity. Ssebaggala Roberts, Under Secretary, Accounting Officer, Equal Employment Commission.
I'm Moino Ngene, the Under Secretary of Gender, Labor and Social.
Lady Agano, Commissioner for Youth and Children, and the Acting Director, Social Protection.
National Program Manager, Program.
Steven Kasarija, Head of the Spanish Social Protection Program.
Thank you very much.
I'm James, Risk Economist, Opportunities Commission.
I'm Winfred Masiko, National Program Coordinator, UWE. Ajambo Emily, Acting Commissioner.
Say all must go.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, to this committee. We are here, Chairperson, to respond to the issues raised by the Parliamentary Committee on Gender, Labour and Social Development on the National Budget Framework Paper for the financial year 2021, 2022, 2025, 2026. Chairperson and honorable members, I would like to extend my appreciation to the Honorable Chair of this committee for inviting the Ministry to interface with the Budget Framework Paper with you on the Budget Framework Paper for the financial year 2021-2022. In accordance with the Public Finance Management Act 2015, Section 9, Subsection 1 to 7 and 8, I have the honor to respond to issues raised by the committee on the ministry's budget framework paper. The Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is mandated under Chapter 4, Articles 31 to 40 and Chapter 16, Article 246 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda to protect and promote the rights of vulnerable population and to address gender inequalities, to ensure cultural growth, labour and employment, as well as community mobilization and empowerment. The development of the ministry's budget framework paper is anchored on the strategic direction of the NDP3. As a ministry, we are contributing to the following programs of NDP3. 1, the human capital development. 2, community mobilization and mindset change. 3, governance and security. And 4, petroleum development. Chairperson, sir, the discussion of the BFP for financial year 2021-2022 will focus on how we have performed as a ministry, and we commit to consolidating the gains registered through strengthening our efforts in gender equality and women empowerment, social protection and livelihood enhancement, labor productivity and productivity and employment, and community mobilization, culture and empowerment of our people. Chairperson and honorable members, as we plan for the next financial year 2021-2022, we are committed to fulfilling our mandate in line with the expectations of the citizens of this country, taking cognizance of the challenges we might face. It is gratifying to note that many of these challenges are manageable with the support and commitment of the stakeholders. We are grateful for the support the honorable members of this committee and the members of parliament in particular, the Committee on Gender, Labour and Social Development has provided to address these challenges. Honorable Chair, allow me to request my technical team, as you rightly alluded to this, that we should summarize. So let me give him a maximum of 7 minutes for the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Gender, Mr. Kiyingi, to quickly rush through the pertinent issues that were raised in the 18 questions that were raised by you, sir, and your committee. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Ministers, members of this committee, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Chair, we received your letter requiring us to provide responses to 17 issues, and our responses to each of those issues are contained in the report that we have circulated. We added an 18th issue, which is the status of implementation of previous committee recommendations, so that we bring you to speak, members of the committee, with regard to the performance of our sector. Honorable Chair, I don't know whether you prefer that we go through the responses first, or we deal with issue by issue and discuss it.
I already mentioned in the communication that we are lucky. Almost all of us here, my vice chair and the members, know what we are talking about.
Okay.
Therefore, you can highlight the key issues on.
So, Honorable Chair,
remember what I told you. When you can mix them for the new parliament, be prepared.
For that matter, Honorable Chair, I ask our head of planning to quickly unpack the table we see on page 3, which highlights our budget performance. After you have summarized that, we don't have to read verbatim, as you say, the physical performance. That report highlights under each output what has been done, and then we can go to the next issue. So if you could, Mr. Katamba, quickly unpack that table, because it summarizes our performance.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. P.S. Honorable Chairperson and members, the ministry at the end of June 2020 performed at 62.6%, the budget release, the funds that were released performed at 62.6%, and of the money that was released, 62.1% was spent. All this, the absorption of these funds is at 99.2%. The reason why we performed at 62.6% is because of our low performance under the government of Uganda development budget, which only performed, where the release performed on 55.8%. But the rest of the items, which we absorbed all the money was released to us and we paid salaries. Then also non-wage, 92.4% was released and major spent.
Chair, as you can see 1.12, that table simply presents program by program the performance of the ministry. And then the details in terms of physical performance are captured page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to 9. We go output by output for departments and agencies and highlight the performance of the ministry. But maybe of interest to you, Chair, and in response to issue number 2, are the emerging priority issues and spending pressures in the coming financial year, which again Mr. Katamba will quickly highlight under response number 2, but also in line with the budget framework paper we submitted and the NDP 3. So you can highlight these priorities quickly.
Thank you, Mr. P.S. As you all know, we have adopted a program for planning, and as the Minister rightly said, one of the programs we are contributing to is community mobilization against change. Unfortunately, Honorable Chair and members, this program has not been allocated sufficient resources. Considering the contributions of the members who have committed resources to the program, only 11.1% of the entire 895.62 billion to kickstart the program has been allocated. This definitely, if no affirmative action is given to community mobilization program, the interventions, it is going to affect it will compromise effective service delivery, and the required community response to government programs will definitely be affected. This will definitely lead to low social and economic returns on public investments, because the driver for service delivery is community mobilization. In order for our citizens to respond to government programs, we need to put more emphasis on community mobilization. But this is a very, very critical area that has not been addressed. Honorable Chair, the other emerging pressure, expenditure pressure, is SAGE. We are committed to roll out SAGE, but even the target of 80 years and above, we have a shortfall of 84.72 billion. If this shortfall is not addressed, the ministry will not be able to fully pay beneficiary entitlements, and this will definitely affect our older persons and also have an effect on poverty. The other key critical issue is about traditional leaders. In line with the directive of the President, we are required to have about, we require about, the President directed that we increase emoluments to 10 million per month for the gazetted traditional leaders from 5, but we only have 840 million, leaving a shortfall of 1.065 billion. This is a funding gap that we need to address urgently, because it includes even areas for the 4 traditional leaders that are gazetted, salaried areas for the additional 4 from 10 to make 14. So these are not receiving salaries and honoraria. So we believe this is quite a critical area that we need to address. Cabinet, Honorable Chair and members, directed that we prioritize the renovation of the National Mosque, and a commitment was made by Finance to provide us with 2.59 billion this year, but we are still awaiting release of these resources. Again, Cabinet has made a number of directives to allocate resources to national apprenticeship, we have the Songhai model, the Green Incubation Project, and Green Jobs Program, as alluded to by the Speaker of Parliament. These resources are yet to be available to us, so we are waiting to see what happens in the coming financial year. Again, this also goes to access to labor justice. There is a set of them that were yet to receive resources. I submit.
Chair, the other issue was on measures that we have put in place to address the cross-cutting issues of gender, equity, environment, and HIV/AIDS. And we have highlighted under each of those areas the measures we have put in place from page 10 up to page 12. And we've also indicated there is a new demand with regard to our response to COVID. We've also highlighted what it is that we plan to do. We, in addition, will continue working with the other line sectors, line ministries, departments, and agencies to address all those cross-cutting issues effectively. The issue of the projected decrease in our budget from 165 billion in the current financial year to 146 billion next financial year has been explained. There are a number of questions you raised there, which I would like Mr. Katamba once again to quickly highlight what explains the decrease in the budget.
Thank you, Mr. P.S. The decrease in our ministry ceiling is attributed to the non-external financing of the strengthening social risk management and gender-based violence response and prevention and response project, which was not approved by Parliament. In addition, the Green Jobs Program came to an end in December 2020. Honourable members, this implies that the ministry currently will not have external financing. And if this situation is not addressed, definitely challenges of GBV, unemployment, irregular immigration, occupational hazards, and poor mindset of our citizens will only get worse. Secondly, Minister of Finance, the projects that have been affected is the one for social risk management, which Parliament rejected. And because of that, World Bank withdrew the commitment to fund. Unfortunately, pardon? Furthermore, Green Jobs Program has come to an end, but we have transited it into a program under recurrent, but still it also has insufficient resources. But majorly, it's the Green Jobs Program that was receiving funding from external sources through UNDP, but it has come to an end. Honourable Member, the position of government on counterpart funding of projects. As a ministry, we have no projects that are currently implemented through external financing, implying we have no commitment on counterpart funding. However, as you're aware, we have the expanding social protection program activities, which also facilitates the implementation of our SAGE program through the government of Uganda, through our recurrent budget. Under this program, we have counterpart funding. We have a commitment to provide counterpart funding as government, in addition to what we get from our development partners, that is Irish Aid and FCDO. But this is not forthcoming, and it is really impacting on the implementation of this program. The non-wage budget, Honourable Chair and members, was affected, or is slated to reduce by 4%. The reduction is majorly on items categorized as consumptive. These include which are key inputs to service delivery of the ministry. If they continue to categorize these items as highly discretionary, it implies that the ministry will not fully implement its mandate on community mobilization, empowerment and protection.
Honorable Chair, those the responses to that issue, and you could quickly touch on the overall impact of the COVID pandemic.
Thank you. Mr. PS, honorable members, there is no doubt that COVID pandemic has not affected us. We have really been affected by the pandemic because we went into a lockdown, and as you know, all our activities are characteristic of our engagement with the people. So with the lockdown, we couldn't implement all these programs. For example, support supervision of our flagship programs was affected, which led to poor performance of the enterprises we are funding under WEB, YLP. Older persons started to struggle because they were not receiving the payments that we expected from us. We are foot soldiers for government service delivery. Because of the lockdown, community mobilization was greatly hampered, both at national and local government level. And as we all begin to see an increase in the incidence of GBV, we are beginning to see an increase in child abuse and exploitation of our workers, because most of them were laid off and our labor function couldn't perform as effective. The other issue that was greatly affected is externalization of labor. We could not do effective regulation because of the lockdown. Now, it's not because of the lockdown that we couldn't do this, but because of the lockdown, releases to facilitate us to do some little work in the lockdown were also not effective.
Honorable Chair, you wanted us to confirm whether our budget is premised on the programs under the NDP3, and we have severally made reference to that, and in our response we have indicated which figures contribute to which program of the NDP3, and the fact that as we were preparing the budget framework paper with guidance from Ministry of Finance and working with the National Planning Authority, we developed program implementation action plans that informed now the budgeting that we made. And then under 7, you required us to provide an analysis of our budget performance, physical and financial, for the current financial year, the first half of the current financial year. And we have once again those two tables summarizing, and the physical activities follow, but just a quick unpacking of those two tables. The physical performance, I think we will not go into the details, but we have highlighted what it is within the first half we've been able to do. So if you can just quickly summarize.
Thank you. As at December, the ministry released budget has performed at 48% because of very poor performance on VOU development, which has performed at 41.1%. However, 40% of what was released has been spent, and all the money and absorption is at 83%, meaning that all the money that was released to us, we have managed to absorb 83% over the last 2 quarters. The next step is about the distribution of the performance by program. Apart from administration, which provides coordination of administrative support, the rest of the programs have received substantial and gender plus decent employment because of the COVID situation. The rest have performed fairly well. The ministry, gender equality, which is the release is at 19.2%, and then decent employment is at 18.4%. So of the 82 that was released, social protection has managed to absorb, to spend 52.5% of the budget, whereas community mobilization has managed to spend 76% of the money that was released. So general absorption by program is on average 83.2%.
Okay, Honorable Chair, we could go to page 16. We trust that members will be able to appraise the physical performance as highlighted on pages 14, 15, up to 16. But under issue number 8, you observed, members of the committee observed that our report for financial 19-20 shows that the ministry has had overall underperformance under external development, and that has been explained. That project, the World Bank supported project, which was not approved, kind of impacted negatively on our performance. Issue number 9, an update on the rollout of SAGE and the number of issues there you raised. In addition to the responses provided here, Honorable Chair, we have given you a copy, very reader-friendly, with regard to the performance of SAGE, and also a pamphlet kind of on the frequently asked questions on the citizens' grant. We trust that in addition to the responses we have provided here, we have a lot of information in those two reports. But if you want to highlight just one or two issues, and then we could go to the next issue.
We have rolled out SAGE for older persons of 8 years and above, and a total of 304,155 older persons have been enrolled. However, honorable members, the requirement to fully pay our beneficiaries this financial is 120.7 billion, but only 62.8 billion has been allocated, which leaves a funding gap of 57 billion. Similarly, next year, the requirement is 147 because the donors are withdrawing, and we expected to absorb what the commitments that they had made. So that's why the budget is going down. But according to the budget framework paper, still we're at the same level of 62.8 billion, which is going to leave a shortfall of 84.72 billion. So if these funding gaps are not covered, of course, the ministry will only afford to pay our beneficiaries for 6 months for all the financial years. And the effect of this is accumulation of arrears. The committee asked about whether they are among in the target of 80 years and above, there are those who are not benefiting. Honorable Chair and members, according to statistics from NERA, we are projected to reach 374,400,000 older persons aged 80 years and above. However, only 304, as rightly pointed out, have already been covered, and approximately 20,000 of the total population of 80 years and above are reportedly dead, and 50,245 older persons are yet enrolled on the program. And the reason is because those who did not, those who are yet to enroll didn't register for national ID, and others understated their date of birth. On the ground, they are 80 years, but in the system, they are below 80 years. So it's kind of becoming a challenge. Chair, we're required to provide our plan on how we are going to progressively bring on board lower age groups up to 65 years. And as a ministry, we have developed a strategic plan demonstrating how we should do this, how we should go on with this program. On page 17 is a table. In addition to this plan, we have written a cabinet paper articulating our prayers on how we can absorb older persons up to 70. The intention is to progressively go down. So we are waiting the decision of Cabinet on how we should implement this. They asked us about the inclusion of persons living with disabilities. Yes, as government, we are committed to the global disability. We are committed. We made commitments at the Global Disability Summit of 2018, and as a result of that, we are currently conducting an impact evaluation of the current disability grant, special grant for disabilities, in order for us to identify the needs of the people with disabilities so that we're able to effectively cater for them under the SAGE program.
Chair, from the record of this committee and through the Minister, that is the strategy for rolling out the SAGE to bring more stakeholders on board. But as you can see, the resources that are required, even for the 80 plus, we are performing at only 50% in terms of what government has provided. So meaning that it will take us quite some time to reach the 60 plus, going by that rollout strategy and as illustrated in that table. Now, the members observed that the table on page 36 shows that the Youth Venture Capital Fund has a budget requirement of 74, but only got so little, leaving a huge funding gap. And we are requested us to provide a detailed performance of the Youth Venture Capital Fund for the last 3 years, both financial and physical. We have a detailed report on the youth, which we will submit. Our response is quite brief, but since you require detail, Honorable Chair, these details have been provided, and through the Honorable Minister, we will share that report with the committee. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on the youth.
Thank you, Mr. P.S. I think just to clarify that current level of the Youth Venture Capital Fund is 12 billion. However, the NDP3 wishes to have 74 billion allocated to this fund in order to address the plight on youth unemployment. But what we have currently is 12 billion. And this 12 billion is in the banking system, in circulation under the banking system, because as you all know, the Youth Venture Capital Fund is managed by the banks. And as a ministry, it's our responsibility to provide support, supervision and monitoring. And that's why within our budget, within our current ceiling, we have only been able to allocate 69 million to facilitate monitoring and support supervision.
So details in terms of performance, Honorable Chair, and that detailed report. In terms of the planned outputs of the ministry, where we talk of building leadership capacity amongst newly elected women leaders in local governments, and whether we will reach the women councils and how much has been allocated. The Honorable Chair will have a response there that confirms that we will certainly reach the councils, and the paltry budgetary provision that has been made vis-a-vis the requirement, an allocation of 1.8 billion against a required budget of 7.6 billion, meaning that 80% may not be reached of the targeted groups. Honorable Chair, issue number 12 is on the Youth Livelihood Program and the budgetary provisions. You can quickly speak to this, and then we'll have also a report on the Youth Livelihood Program.
Yes, Chair, it is rightly stated that we had initially allocated 4.1 billion when we started the planning cycle there was an indicative provision of 4.1 billion for YLP. However, as we went on to deliberate with the stakeholders and Ministry of Finance before submission of the budget framework paper, this allocation was adjusted to the current level of 3.3 billion. So I need to clarify that the level, the amount of resources allocated to youth life program is 3.3 billion, not 4.45 billion. So, as you all know, our resources for this program were cut, which greatly affected operations of the program. And the implication, Honorable Chair and members, is that the Ministry, because of the disruption in program implementation, we are not able to meet the demand for funds by the youth, which definitely is escalating youth discontent and hence compromising national development objectives. Similarly, honorable members and chair, critical activities such as beneficiary training, monitoring and recovery of funds has also greatly been hampered. On the issue of recovery, as at January 27, the total recovery stands at 39,102,664,990 shillings out of 75,175,875,313 shillings that is due for collection, reflecting a recovery rate of 52.01%. Honorable Chairperson and members, without additional resources from Ministry of Finance, the Ministry is only relying on funds recovered to finance new projects. However, this is still very low considering the number of youth that have expressed interest to benefit from the program. The current level of the fund has been able to finance 254,870 youth beneficiaries against a demand of 1,411,074 youth that have expressed interest in benefiting from this program. We are asked, honorable members, whether we are in charge of the program. Chairperson, honorable members, the implementation of YLP is firmly under the ministry. However, it's important to note that the phase one of this project is coming to an end on 30th June, and it is going to be transformed into a program under the recurrent budget of the ministry. A program code has been allocated to enable this transition, to enable the transition, and the ministry therefore seeks additional funding of about 71.03 billion to sustain the program in line with the NDP3.
Mr. Chairperson, that note we have submitted to your committee the detailed copy of the detailed plan of part 2 of the youth development program.
But to the Honourable Minister Chair, beyond the details provided here, the statistics of performance by target group, by district, is also included in this report, which the committee can also look at. Now, Honourable Chair, members observe that there was a meeting between the Honourable Minister and the Right Honourable Speaker, where a request was made to increase funding for the following key programs and projects under the ministry. And these were listed: the National Apprenticeship, Uganda Green Incubation Center, as indicated in that table. Of course, increment of funding depends on the indicative planning figures that the Ministry of Finance has forwarded to us, but in the budget for financial year 2021-22, no additional resources have been provided for these important projects. and we give details on each of these on page 19 and page 20 up to page 21. All those are highlighting what the funding gap is under each of them, resources which, as we have observed, Minister of Finance has not been able to provide within the indicative planning figures. I don't know whether we need to highlight any of these or we can go to issue number 14, unless there's anything specific. Proceed. So issue number 14, you required a detailed status of implementation of other projects, including the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Fund, promotion of green jobs, chemical safety and security, and all those, again, the status on each of them has been provided. You want to highlight quickly any of them?
Chair and honorable members, apart from a web, I think detailed reports have been submitted for Green Jobs Program, Chesase, Safety and Security Project. So the details are in those. And then Social Risk Management and Gender-Based GBV, that one was not approved, so we cannot provide any update to it. But specifically for web, honorable members, to date, 13,061 women groups have been financed, reaching 158,080 women in the various sectors. And cumulatively, 80 billion has been disbursed since the inception of the program. But as of January 2021, 17.36 billion has been recovered against Uganda shillings 23.4 billion that is due for repayment, representing a recovery rate of 74.2%. In addition, Honorable Chair and members, the program has so far revolved 9.9 billion to 1,483 women groups, reaching 14,644 women beneficiaries.
Honorable Chair, through the Minister, once again, for the committee's further reference, in addition to the brief comments we have provided, I have a more detailed report here on the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, WOEP, on the National Apprenticeship and Graduate Volunteer Program, on the Green Jobs and Fair Labor Markets Program, and on the National Apprenticeship and Graduate Volunteer Scheme. This is really in addition to the summary that we have provided in our response. Issue 15 is on the status of the pledge that was made of 10 billion grant for older persons by His Excellency the President. Of course, our response is that brief, that up to now we've not succeeded to secure funding as pledged from Ministry of Finance. But we continue to engage with them and to highlight the need for that pledge to be met. And the next one is also with regard to another pledge for provision of motorcycles for councillors representing people with disabilities at district and municipal level. Same response. I do recall that on the International Day that we celebrated together, the Honourable Minister here present did commit that this is something to continue to follow up, and we look forward to a time when we'll be able to brief this committee on progress with regard to those two pledges. And on an update to the committee on the status of implementation of labor externalization and how the ministry is responding to the challenges associated with COVID-19, we provide the status, having issued the operating procedures, the standard operating procedures. Recruitment companies were allowed to resume business, and details are provided there below up to the following page. And then 17, response to issue number 17 on the responding to the challenges associated with COVID. I think some mention had already been made of what it is, how it has impacted on the ministry, and we provide some additional information. But I think the context here, because the question was tied to externalization of labor, so the response here in terms of impact also deals with that particular subject. I don't know whether there is anything there you want to highlight quickly.
Because of COVID, honorable members, the ministry revoked SOPs, and through our regulation, only 189 companies out of 210 have been licensed to operate. Those are the only ones that are compliant to COVID. And since 2016, when we started labor externalization, we have so far exported 62,558 labor to the countries you see in that table in Roman 2. Chair, that notwithstanding, there are still challenges that we face. One of them is limited funding to facilitate regulation of externalization of labor in Uganda and abroad. Two, we don't have the capacity to provide consular support abroad, and we have weak labor migration data management systems. Also, the issue of human trafficking is quite a challenge to us. However, we have, as a ministry, we have not sat down. We have tried to see how to adapt to the challenges. One of the remedies we have proposed is to review our regulations on external employment, and to include charge collection of fees from recruitment companies both in here and abroad. We believe that this would be a very good source of non-tax revenue to boost resource mobilization that should facilitate regulation of externalization of labor. Secondly, we are engaging finance as a ministry, we have developed the Safe and Productive External Employment Program, and costed it to about 5 billion shillings, of which only 360 million has been provided. So we are engaging finance to see how we can cover the shortfall of 6.46. So our efforts are twofold. We are engaging to get the shortfall, but we are also proposing charging of fees to see how we can facilitate the mobilization of resources to cover the shortfall. The other issue we have addressed as a ministry, we have embarked on phase 2 of the External Employment Management Information System in order to address the weak labor migration data management problem. And our bilateral labor agreements with Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and United Arab Emirates are being reviewed to provide for protection of our citizens in light of COVID-19.
Honorable Chair, under 18 is an update to the committee on progress with regard to the implementation of recommendations that were made the previous year. And safety of Ugandan employees, migrant workers abroad is what has just been explained. The issue of persistent budget cuts, we've also talked about this. And we would like the committee and probably the Parliament in its entirety to engage Minister of Finance more in terms of addressing this issue of blanket description of consumptive expenditure. government has a tendency, through Ministry of Finance, to say anything vehicle maintenance, anything training, anything workshops is consumptive expenditure. But there are sectors whose efficiency and effectiveness is in their mobility and reaching the communities. There is no way we are going to carry out community mobilization, mindset change as a lead sector, and several of those services we provide when budget cuts are effected on many of those areas that are called consumptive expenditure in government. So I think there should be a discussion that appreciates which sectors must be on the move constantly, whose vehicles must be maintained, who must procure vehicles for purposes of delivering services. When there is a blanket ban, it affects all of us, and it also results into funds not being released for purposes of us implementing these programs. The national rollout on SAGE, we have provided the specific responses, but also in the reports that we have given, I think we have brought the committee to a point of appreciating where we are. The Youth Livelihood Program, we have provided our response, but also in the reports that we have given, it's possible to know where we are. Promotion of green jobs and fair labor market program, and the recommendations that you made, as we've said, regarding additional funding, we have not yet been successful. Fast tracking the implementation of Uganda Green Incubation from Guide model. Once again, same response, no resources have been provided. Implementation of access to labor justice in order to reduce the case backlog. You made some recommendations there. We engaged Ministry of Finance. However, no funding has been provided. Perhaps understandably, that during much of the financial year we are talking about, the country was under a lockdown, and many of the activities, even the funding from government, was significantly scaled down. Chemical safety and security project, you have made a recommendation. We did not receive those resources, and yet asbestos material used in roofing schools, hospitals, and other government facilities continues to pose serious health hazards. So probably these are issues that the committee will help amplify further in Parliament. We have submitted an update on this in the reports that we shared. Externalization of labor, fast-tracking recruitment of officers responsible for handling complaints. We still are committed. We think that we've improved financing as a result of the non-tax revenue that the regulations will allow our missions to collect. We should be able to deploy labor officers in some of these countries, especially Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, where we have big numbers of Ugandans and issues as well. So those are issues that we should be able to take on. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, together with gender labor, fast-tracking recruitment and deployment of the Integrated Management Information System. We've highlighted the progress we've made, and enforcing penalties for recruitment agencies for non-compliance. We've informed you about the guidelines which we are promoting with the Solicitor General. I think we are at the final stage of clearing those guidelines. Bilateral agreements with the labor receiving countries, we gave you an update of the agreements that are in place, and we intend to review these agreements further and address any loopholes that there might still be, and make sure that Ugandans who are externalized, work in decent conditions and indignity. Presidential pledges, we have in our report given you an update on these two pledges, the 10 billion and the motorcycles. Honorable Chair, through the Minister, these are issues that we talked about in our last meeting, and our report also updates this committee on how much we've been able to do. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Please accept to receive a responses to the questions raised from number 1 to number 17 of the California paper, and also an addition to 18.1 to 18.2 of the previous year assessment. Thank you.
Minister, I don't know whether I think we should have met. Has made a very detailed and comprehensive presentation. Now what remains is for us to use this information, see what we can do within our mandate. So thank you so much, Minister. Remember, you have some questions. Sir.
About the SAGE, the ministry is talking about 20,000. About the 20,000 beneficiaries who died and they didn't get paid because we've just come out of the elections and we found that even the dead were in the register. So I wanted to know how come you managed to get the 20,000 that are dead, because it is quite contrary with what we saw during the concluded election. Secondly, on page 17, I have seen the ministry talk about the special grant for PWUs. I wanted to also inquire, do you have any special grant for the widows? Because I think these are also a big challenge in the community out there. Something on page 21, access to labor justice and labor complaints. Still, you've talked about 20,000 labor complaints and disputes have been registered. How many have you handled? Because we've seen before, all these have been happening and there's been no justice to the people of Uganda who have been assaulted out there. I have an issue on page 21 about the access to labor justice, in brackets labor complaints and disputes. You talked about COVID-19 as exhibited the situation where over 20,000 labor complaints and disputes have been registered by Ministry of Labor, Social and Social Development and local governments. I wanted to know how many cases have you handled, because initially we've been having these cases and they've not been handled. Lastly, on page 23, on the status of implementation of labor externalization, you talked of there are 210 external labor recruitment companies currently licensed by the ministry. However, only XXX have been allowed to operate. after complying with the COVID-19 SOPs. And I heard your official here talked of 199, so I don't know what to take, which is which. I wanted clarity on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, I need to welcome you and congratulate you. This is the only committee where the Chair and the Vice Chair first overwhelming. The rest of the sectoral committees, the Chair and the Vice Chair. So we need to congratulate you. Chair, I have 2 or 3. I have 2 or 3 observations. One, and I need to thank the PS. I was consulting my Vice Chair here. I entered when the PS was presenting. Particularly, it's the first time we are interfacing in this committee. My first observation, Chair, the Minister of Gender is the minister that is responsible for the welfare and the best life of this country, the Ugandans. If we normally receive the PS presenting and saying there was a failure to have resources provided, this country is not doing any justice to Ugandans. If there is any underfunding in this ministry, then we are not doing anything for this country. Forget the stories of building roads, stories of providing money for buying the...
Somebody, I want to give information. Last fiscal year, our budget was cut by 21%. Then this fiscal year, also 21%. And the next fiscal year is being cut by 21%. So if you go by this trend, it means that within 10 years, you have no money for social compensation.
So, thanks for the information, Chair. Thanks for the information, Chair. Thanks for the information, Chair. If truly we are the lawmakers and we appropriate the budget, we must put up a spirited fight. We either meet the Speaker and agree, we set up a clear meeting with the Minister of Finance and the budget, and some among the budgets that they must touch. They can't cut the budget for Minister of Gender. This is the life of Ugandans. The rest of these things don't help. Money to buy Bombardier, right on Chair. And you said those are priorities. When we are cutting money for this sector that will help improve the lives of Ugandans. So we need to do something. I heard the PS saying in the last meeting, they presented a report and you discussed. I don't know, I was not in that meeting, so I don't know what was discussed. Possibly I missed the meeting. I don't know when, but we can't be here and say we shall continue lamenting and say gender. Chair, you remember we met the president.
I was in the meeting.
You were in the meeting.
And Minister of Finance made a lot of bridges, many promises.
Invite us in the meeting, Chair. Invite us in the meeting. The Minister of Finance will not leave that hall. So, you remember, Chair, we went to meet the President on the NSSF bill. And you saw how the President was saying, now you put NSSF in the Ministry of Gender. Gender is responsible for women and children. I was not happy. It's because I was at his home. Otherwise, I was going to make a very serious comment. But I was at his home, I could not respond. Ministry of Gender is responsible for Ugandans. It's not responsible for women. It's not responsible for children. It's responsible for youth. When women are happy, when children are happy, when youth are happy, men are happy. So everybody is happy. So I saw him making those derogatory statements and I just kept quiet. So, stories of saying they will do the budget cut for this ministry, Chair, let us meet, if it requires meeting the President, we gather a team and say, don't touch this budget because of A, B, C, D. Let them touch budgets of other ministries, let them cut budgets of other sectors, but the Ministry of Gender, Chair, gender is where Ugandans are only enjoying. It touches the PWDs, the elderly, Chair. So we can't continue lamenting. No, it must come to an end and we do something. For that case, Chair, you, the Minister, the PS, we meet the Speaker, we invite the Minister of Finance, and we don't agree on that. We don't agree on that. Let us take a position and say this must move. Leaving that apart, Chair, I heard the PS talking about bilateral agreements for external labor force. PS, there is a challenge. Chair, you remember last year, we didn't move any further. There was a big challenge there. Ugandans are suffering outside there. We can't say we are going in the next government unless I will not be part of the next government. But we can't see those stories again. We can't. We had issues with the companies that recruit, and the Minister of Gender here said they don't have powers over some of those companies. We had issues with the untouchables. It's good some of them have gone, though it's a bad statement. The untouchables. But we can't see Ugandans continuing to suffer because of the untouchables. We must put it to order, those recruiting companies. We must bring to book whoever is responsible for people suffering elsewhere. I heard the PS saying one of the measures is charging these companies to have some money put in revenue. That money just goes in revenue. The other day, you remember, Chair, the man who receives the money goes on another account, then he transferred it to the man who is in Saudi Arabia, who even failed to appear before the committee. It's good I'm still on this committee until May. We shall make sure the money is brought to book to answer. But people are just enjoying that money. So much as you have put a charge, it doesn't solve the problem of Ugandans suffering from those other areas. We must have a solution and help those Ugandans. Second last, Chair, the issue of Songhai model. The President came to Kamuli and Madam Speaker re-echoed the funding for Songhai model. Me, I will not be part of the committee where they said there is no money to fund the Songhai model. We must do whatever it takes to see the Songhai model funded. Whether it requires a supplementary, let us agree, we shall agree, even if the budget is passed. The police have seen here, the culture. You pass a budget today, tomorrow people come up with a supplementary. Before they even see what is being spent on in the previous budget. So if it's what it requires, it's what we should do. We must see the Songhai model funded. The other day, Chair, you remember Speaker said, no program, no report, no document from Ministry of Finance should be received on the floor until Southern Sudan is paid. If they can give people of Southern Sudan priority, that no program, no report, no document, no processing of any funding from Ministry of Finance because of paying people who lost money in Southern Sudan, why not Minister of Gender? We say nothing should be done unless these stories, we must put spirited fights, Chair, to see this. Otherwise, we are not helping Ugandans. Lastly, Chair, the PS said the consumptive expenditure where a statement from the Ministry of Finance is passed at once and say everything. It's because some of these things are not brought to our attention. These people in some ministries are just enjoying. Their workshops are for getting allowances. Workshops for Ministry of Gender is to improve the lives of Ugandans in Ibugabula and elsewhere. So we can't have those who are just saying we cancel and cut consumptive expenditure for those who are enjoying in Serena, and we are just providing accountability, looking for where to do the accountability, and suffer the same way like people that are providing and improving lives for people in Mayuge and Kabula Maido. So we can't allow this. We must run a country that is pro-Ugandans, not a country that is just there for others to lavish and do this and that. Thank you, Chair.
Bastian, any question? So, we give opportunity to the Minister to respond to these few questions. Correct, I hope you have noted what's going to be proposed. What you have noted, yes.
Thank you.
The amount with about and years proposal.
Thank you very much,
Round of
Chairperson
the
Committee. And once again, on
There are
behalf
few
of the
questions.
Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, we want to re-echo our appreciation to the committee, in most especially understanding the subject matter and being concerned both on behalf of the people of Uganda and on behalf of the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. Right, Honourable Chair, we registered a few concerns from the members. Honourable Sarah was concerned about 20,000 elder persons who passed on, and we are proud to let her know that we registered these responses at payment time and as an enrollment time as well. This process is also handled by our officers who are spread across the country, as well as the committee that we hold under the Disability Council. So it is both the ministry and the local governments that work together to ensure that we have the responses we require. But we have to mention that we don't have the right to delete or edit the register. We can only note and we forward for accountability purposes. The Honourable Sarah was also concerned about the discrepancy between the number of licensed companies and the number of companies that have been approved to clearly practice and put in force the SOPs as dictated by the COVID scourge. So the number of licensed companies was 210, but those that have put in place and have adhered to the standard operating procedures under Immigration of Labour are 189. We have to mention to the committee that we have reviewed and enhanced the regulatory framework to ensure that we can clearly monitor and enhance our oversight function to ensure that even the remaining challenges are discounted to zero. Chairperson, sir, there was a concern about certainly the budget cuts and the underfunding of the ministry. I think this cannot be overemphasized. We have echoed more than once, twice, thrice. Whenever we come here, whenever I lead a committee to this honorable house, we cry and yell out our concerns about the underfunding of the ministry. Yes, we have been through contact with the electorate through the exercise that has just been concluded, and all that was being aired day in, day out was about the livelihood of the people, the money that is sent to the people, and the work of the social protection in the country. So we appeal to this honorable committee not to tire out, to continue pleading to the budget committee to increase funding and to reduce cuts or to discount cuts to zero to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Chairperson, sir, there was a concern for the widows. I believe even the widower as well, because the man can equally fall prey to losing a partner. I think the effect is more or less the same. But in my understanding, there is no legal classification of that kind of category in the Ministry of Gender, much as we go out of our way to cater for them under vulnerable segments in social empowerment grants that we have across the board. The WEP has been clearly catering for the underprivileged, especially the widowers, the people with HIV/AIDS, women with disabilities, and so is the Youth Livelihood Program. We all know that today you can have a spouse, tomorrow you can fall prey. So it's really hard to plan for some of these communities ahead of the table. But we can promise as a ministry that we shall continue to always look out for people who are underprivileged and those who are hard hit at any one point in time, so that we report to you and we also offer help. Chairperson, I wish to conclude our remarks, and on behalf of my team, I thank them for preparing this report and for the responses. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Also, executing the mandate. Can I have some copies? Presentation. What you have? Some copies. Presentation. So, very useful information. I want to show this very useful information. On the side, you're not satisfied? Something, what can I answer?
I want a simple clarification from the Minister. I just have someone who is coming from Okomansindi to come and do an interview with one of the labor externalization companies. But since you've said that the 180 now are the ones that are covered under the SOPs, are Ugandans aware that this has been done? Are we safe that all these companies that they are going to give them the necessary services? Because she's coming, I don't know whether the company is among these ones that is already allowed to do this labor externalization.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sarah. Chairperson, we have a portal and we have a grievance handling desk, and we receive complaints day to day from all our branches across the country. There is an umbrella body that handles, that clearly displays and markets these registered companies across the board. But even online, now that we are practicing COVID-related interactions with the general public, someone can go online and can be able to access. Nevertheless, we can wait for the for the citizen mentioned, so that as a ministry we are open to offering answers and helping that person out of the problem, the fact that is coming from Bukomasimbi. Chairperson, sir, can you allow me to put on record or to submit formally a report from another report from the Equal Opportunities Commission, the fact that the commission was expressly highlighted here, but further still we have a representative from the commission just in case there is an extra question involving the activities of the Equal Opportunities Commission. But I wish to submit the report, to put on record the operations of them.
We are going to accept it, but yesterday I met chairperson of my chairperson in the corridors, and as I was alerted that while we were busy with the campaigns, the term of office of the Equal Opportunities Commission expired, and as therefore, as speak right now, there are no commissioners, correct?
Yes, right, Chairperson. We have been working. We are working round the clock to ensure that we initiate the processes to cabinet for approval of the board that expired for the Equal Opportunities Commission.
So the names are already there for board members.
It is a very serious situation because people ask,
by the time
for whom are you asking money?
they have the names.
Yes, so we had challenges with COVID that also cabinet operations were scaled down.
We accept this presentation.
Thank you.
But please work around the book to ensure that the commission is in place. Because legally there is no commission. In the budget committee, if some people are aware, they are asking, for which commission are you asking for money?
Soon and very soon.
Part I have not received of your communication, but they know maybe there is no commission.
Soon and very soon.
Thank you so much. So have a good day. Sir, you go to the minister and share contacts about the desk-ing commission.
It's expectation of the chair. Chair, the minister has to look at somebody that has a very good opportunity.